Barack Obama stirred up some shit yesterday in an interview he did where he was criticizing activists and people saying defund the police. And there's a couple things I want to say about this. Before I get into the actual quote about what he said, let's talk about his tone. And as you'd expect, he came out with that same arrogant ass, paternalistic, oh, I'm really on your side, but let me give you the strategies so that, we can get to this goal. Even though in reality, we don't agree on this issue. You are not on our side. You don't agree with us on the policy. So this is not like some good faith advice he's giving us to get to the end goal that we want. No, he's trying to steer the direction into something that the neoliberals and the corporatists in the Democratic Party are comfortable with, which is the status quo and incremental change. Obama doesn't want to slash police budgets and use that money for social programs. Obama doesn't want to disband police departments and reform an entirely different type of public safety system in this country. Obama doesn't want to stop giving the police military equipment. Obama doesn't want to prosecute all the criminals who are hiding behind their badge. He doesn't want to get rid of qualified immunity. He doesn't want to prosecute all the police officers and police chiefs who sent their officers out to violently assault peaceful protesters that we all saw on video for months doing false arrests in every single precinct across the country. He doesn't want to do those things. He says in this interview what he actually wants to do. He just wants to reform it. He just wants to make it a little bit different, some tweaks around the edges. We don't have the same goals here. We're not working towards the same things. And this gets to one of the most sinister, insidious aspects about Barack Obama, which I hate. And it's that he has this the view that people have of Barack Obama, it doesn't come anywhere near reality. Barack Obama, he's no different than a Republican on most issues. I'd say, on most issues. But the fact that he's black and the fact that he's so smooth and such a likable person and easy to talk to, people gravitate towards him and view him as a friend, as an ally, somebody who's trying to make their lives better. But in reality, every single thing he does is to try to undermine any movement that the grassroots, that the working class is trying to do to bring systemic change in the country. All he wants to do is undermine all those movements and push for the same bullshit neoliberal incrementalism that he has been doing, that the Democratic Party has been doing for years, that has gotten us nowhere, that has changed nothing. So I'm going to get into all that later on in the video, and also get into my thoughts on the whole defund the police phrasing. But first, you guys already know the deal. I'm trying to do something a little bit different in December. We are about to officially hit 3,000 subscribers if we haven't already. Last I checked, we're about 9 subscribers away. Also, my birthday is exactly a month from today. It would be January 2nd. So for the entire month of December, I'm going to get questions from the audience to do a Q&A. And then the last day I'll be accepting questions will be January 2nd. And after that, I'll see how many questions I'll have, and I'll decide if I want to do a whole Q&A video or break it down into separate videos. But if you want to make sure that your question is definitely answered, you can either join my Patreon, subscribe to my Patreon, and message me your Q&A question there, or you could do a contribution through PayPal and add a message when you send the contribution with your Q&A question. And I want to thank all the people who have already contributed over the last few weeks and the last few months. It means a lot that I have an audience that will support me and help me do what I love to do, which is do this show for you guys. Now to this, back to Barack Obama's comments about defunding the police. Now, before I read the quote, let me make something very clear. When people say defund the police, it's not just some catchphrase. It's not a slogan. That is an actual policy position. Now, people will their exact interpretation of what they believe defund the police mean might vary from person to person, but it's a policy position that we should take government money from the police departments and put it into social programs. That's what the overwhelming majority of people who say defund the police, that's what they mean. That's what they're saying. So the whole idea, so when people act like, oh, I want to agree with you guys, but when you say defund the police, it turns people off, so you should change the slogan and come up with something better. Two things to say about that. One, so this is a criticism that I'm hearing from a lot of people, including Barack Obama here, but I have never once heard them come up with something better to say. So were we supposed to just not talk about defunding the police until somebody comes up with a more poll tested and market approved phrase for defunding the police? So we should just not say it, not say anything about it at all until we have something that makes you feel more comfortable? I think that's a ridiculous position. And it's like I said, it is a policy position. People are saying it because that's what they mean. They want to defund the police. So the idea that we have to change it to make more people uncomfortable is missing the point. That is the correct solution. That is what they view is the correct solution to deal with this lawless, unaccountable police departments that we have in every precinct, in every city across the country. It is to defund the police. That is their solution. And if it's not popular, if the majority of the public doesn't agree with that solution, that doesn't mean we just abandon it and come up with something that the majority of the country already agrees with. All that means is you need to do a better job of explaining why what defunding the police means and why you should be more uncomfortable with the idea that the police can act like violent, lawless thugs who target and violently go after people who criticize them, like we saw for months on camera in this country. That should make people more comfortable than the words defund the police. The fact that the police are entirely unaccountable to anybody and they're lawless and they can do whatever they want without any repercussions. That should make you more uncomfortable. A violent, occupying force, an authoritarian, fascist police state, that should make you more uncomfortable. So I think people should just explain the dynamics of either we defund the police or we live in a police state. So that's how I feel about it. And also, it is beyond me how people can do all this nitpicking and complaining about the words we're using. And I've been seeing this for months. They do this, and all the while they won't actually address what the substance of the issue is, the real root of the problem. Like I said, the lawless, unaccountable police. That's left out of the discussion, and the discussion is entirely, oh, isn't the phrasing defund the police, isn't that so problematic? Isn't that so bad? Let's get a bunch of Democratic politicians to tell us how bad the words defund the police are and how they think it cost them in the election. And then we'll get a bunch of people in the media to talk about how problematic it is and look at the polls, look how people feel about the phrase. And all the while they're doing that, they're not talking about the root of the issue, that the police are entirely lawless and unaccountable and violent. Gratuitously violent against the people that they're supposed to be protecting, where they're getting government taxpayer money to protect the citizens, and they're gratuitously violent. That's the root of the problem. So if the solution, which is defund the police, sounds too radical, it sounds too extreme for you, well, guess what? The problem is also radical. The problem is also extreme. A police state where they can do whatever they want. They can brutalize peaceful protesters, unconstitutional, and it's illegal. They can use tear gas. They can use military equipment on their citizens without cause. They can shoot people, unarmed people, with no repercussions. That's an extreme problem. And it's not a confined thing. It's not an isolated incident. Like I said, we saw every single police precinct in this country lawlessly, violently assaulting peaceful protesters. And this is what they're doing on camera. So this is an entire problem with the institution. That is radical. That is extreme. And again, this is what they're doing on camera. Imagine what all the stuff that they're doing behind scenes, the planting evidence, the framing people, the false arrests, all the stuff that they do when they're not on camera, when the world isn't watching them. So this entire institution is beyond just minor tweaks, and it's beyond just little tweaks around the edges and reforms. We need to entirely redo the public safety system in this country because it's out of control. So here's my new rule about anybody who wants to complain about the phrasing of defund the police. I don't want to hear you say anything about how the wording makes you uncomfortable, the wording turns some people off. And I don't want to hear you say anything about that unless it is preceded by a whole 10-minute explanation of how the police are entirely out of control, and this cannot continue. This lawless, unaccountable, gratuitously violent policing that we have in this country, that cannot continue, where they selectively choose who they enforce the laws on, and it's almost always minority people, but it's definitely always poor people, and the rich get a pass, their crimes don't count. So the entire criminal justice system, the entire system of policing, it doesn't work. That's the only way I want to hear anybody say something about defund the police. Otherwise, it looks like you're just trying to change the topic and you don't want to actually talk about what people are really mad about, which is the insane, out of control police institution in this country. There are many things that need to happen, radical systemic changes that need to happen. And I think it starts at defund the police, but it needs to go way further than that. And you see how Obama's trying to be the gatekeeper here and say, oh, whoa. Even defund the police. That sounds a little too radical to me. Let's dial it back a little bit and talk about some mild, incremental, neoliberal police reforms. Let's do that instead. So Obama is your enemy here. He is not your friend. I've been trying to say this, been trying to tell black people for years. Obama is not your friend. And it's amazing that every time when it comes to issues like this, he shows his ass and he shows who he really is. And when it was Colin Kaepernick, he was saying, you have to think about what you're doing. You're hurting the military. You're hurting the members of the military when you protest police brutality, when you kneel during the national anthem. That's what he was saying during Colin Kaepernick. So imagine that. And this exposes his ass. He's complaining about defund the police. You got to be careful with the words you say. But what's the excuse when you were shitting on Colin Kaepernick? He didn't even say any words. He was just kneeling, and you said, that's too offensive. So it looks like you just want people to shut the fuck up about the out of control police, and anything that they say is too extreme and it's too out of bounds for you, and you are right there to be the gatekeeper and pounce on it. So now let me give you Barack Obama's quotes, which I should have done before, but I got carried away there. So he says, quote, "If you believe as I do that we should be able to reform the criminal justice system so that it's not biased and treats everybody fairly, I guess you can use snappy slogans like defund the police, but you lost a big audience the minute you say it, which makes it a lot less likely that you're actually going to get the changes that you want done." Okay. So this smooth talking motherfucker, he has this way of making it seem like he's on your side, but you really have to look at what he's saying, and then you can tell that no, he actually isn't, and he's proposing something which is completely different. What is he saying there? If you believe as I do, we should be able to reform the criminal justice system so that it's not biased and it treats everybody fairly. But again, that's not what people mean when they say defund the police. They're not saying, hey, let's reform the criminal justice system so that it's not biased and treats everybody fairly. When they say defund the police, they are literally saying take the money from the police that they're using to act like a foreign military occupying force in these countries, in these cities. Take the money from them and put it into social programs. That is a policy position. And what Barack Obama is saying is a bunch of neoliberal claptrap and incrementalism that doesn't amount to any serious concrete policies to bring systemic change. All it is just claptrap and noise to make it sound like you're saying something, but you're really not. Where's the policy there? Where's the concrete policy that he's proposing there? It doesn't exist. So now let me give you my position on this. I agree with people saying defund the police. I do think we should defund the police, and I do think we should take giant chunks from the endlessly growing police budgets and put it to social programs. Because if you look at the budgets that these police departments have in cities across the country, it is absurd how much money we're spending on policing, on locking people up, on sending violent thugs to terrorize communities, as opposed to addressing the actual problems in these communities with actual social programs to improve people's lives and to avoid crime in general. So I agree with that, but I go even further, and I think ultimately we need to disband these police departments and we need to completely reinvent public safety. So I'd go even further than defund the police, and I'd say abolish the police. And I'm not saying have it be a fucking free-for-all, anarchy, and there are no rules, no laws, you do what you want, and might makes right. I'm not saying that at all. There should be a public safety system, but not this policing institution that we have in this country. And if you look into the origins of policing in this country and how it's evolved over the years, you can see how we got to this point. And you can see that there is no amount of neoliberal incremental reforms that are going to actually get to the root of the problem and solve the problem. All that is just going to be putting lipstick on a pig. Because I've looked into this definitely more over the last few months, and the origins of policing in this country come from slave patrols. That's even the badges with the stars. That was originally slave patrols that were using it. So the whole origins of policing in this country came from rounding up people who ran away from black people who ran away from enslavement and bringing them back to their owners. That's what the institution was to begin with. And of course, when you have something like that, it invites a whole lot of racists to this institution. And then over the years, it evolves, but you can still see the racist undertones in the way that they do their job. So they went from slave patrols rounding up escaped black people to enforcing Jim Crow and enforcing segregation, racist laws meant to target and use the law to go after black and minority people in this country. The same police departments evolved into enforcing those type of laws. Or you can't drink out of white drink water fountain. You can't sit in the front of the bus. You can't take your kids to a white school or whatever it is. Those are the same law. Those are the same police departments who enforce those laws and who beat the shit out of peaceful black protesters who were doing sit-ins and marches. That's the same type of institution we're talking about. It didn't change. There wasn't a break in history and we suddenly there was these neutral police departments that formed. No, like I said, they just evolved and did their racism in a more socially accepted way, enforcing Jim Crow, enforcing segregation. And then now the era we're in is the drug war. They enforce the drug war and all the broken windows policing, all the petty crimes in poor communities and minority communities. And like I said, there was no break in history where at some point all the racists in the police departments, all the people who were using the law to target minorities in the country, they all just left the force and then they hired new people, completely neutral and enforcing the law equally. That never happened. It was just a continuation. So, and then of course, there's always the aspect of the police are there to keep the poor in line. They don't enforce the law equally. They don't arrest and go after wealthy and powerful, well-connected people the same way they do poor people. So there's always that aspect there too that has evolved in the hundreds of years of policing in this country. People need to keep that in mind when we're trying to analyze the current problems with the whole institution of policing in this country. These problems are rooted in the way that they do their job, in the way that they are trained to do their job, in the way that they're trained to view the community and the people that they're supposed to be policing. And you cannot get rid of that with some minor reforms like what the Democrats try to do, that bullshit. I don't even remember what was in their bullshit police reform that they passed in that house. But now, like I said, we have this police department not only racist, but they're just criminal and selectively enforce the law. So they will beat the shit out of peaceful protesters, assault peaceful protesters. That's a felony. Are any of the police officers who did that shit going to get arrested? No, because they all did it. Every single precinct in every single city in this country, they all did it. They all were acting like lawless thugs and criminals. So are we supposed to just and this is the thing, like, I feel like people are trying extra hard to memory hole what we saw the police departments do over the last few months. Like, we didn't just see them show their ass and act like completely lawless thugs, doing false arrests because people were protesting them, assaulting people because they were protesting them, using military equipment on peaceful citizens, exercising the First Amendment right because they were saying words that they don't like. So we have this criminal institution that is supposed to be enforcing the law, and people don't seem to understand how wildly unacceptable and untenable this current dynamics that we have in this country when it comes to policing is. They don't seem to get it, and they seem to think, oh, we just need to do something so that they stop shooting unarmed black people so much. Like, all these problems are connected, and they come back to these people are not fit to do the job that they're doing. And the systems in place are not working, and they need to be redone. So ultimately, I think we should abolish the police, and I think we should come up with public safety departments that are heavily regulated, and there's community oversight. That is another thing that is incredibly important. There has to be community oversight. There has to be accountability to the community that they're supposed to be policing. Because the way it is now, the police are in charge of themselves. They're accountable to themselves and nobody else. They have their own internal investigations that they do, and the public doesn't know about it, and the public has no say on who gets hired and who gets fired. It's all of that happens within the police department. But if the entire department is corrupt, then of course they're not going to be rooting out the corruption. So these new public safety departments that we have, there should be community oversight boards made up entirely of people in the community, and they should have say of writing the training that that happens in these safety departments. They need to be in charge of discipline. They need to be in charge of hiring and firing. They could hire and fire anybody up to and including the chief of police. We also need to end the drug war. So at every turn, Obama shows his ass, and he shows he doesn't give a fuck about black people. But still, he has this image, he's viewed as the emperor king of blacks, and it's just the disconnect from what he actually does, his policies that he actually supports, and the things that he's done in his career as the most powerful person on the planet, it doesn't. He shouldn't have the admiration and respect that he has among black people just because he's somebody who has black skin and was elected to president. Okay, what did you do for black people? What problems did you solve? None. You made them all worse. You exacerbated it. You continued the drug war. You gave the police military equipment. You allowed them to go and bash the heads of protesters across the country when they were protesting police brutality when you were president. So you denied them health care. You wouldn't support a single-payer healthcare system. Didn't support raising the minimum wage. Didn't support tuition-free college. So at what point, where did you ever do anything for black people? So you don't deserve the admiration. You don't deserve the respect. He's just as much of an adversary to the black community and the agenda that black people have as any Republican, any white conservative Republican you can pick off the street. So, as you can tell, I have very strong feelings about Barack Obama. So, let me know what you guys think in the comment section, and we have an interesting conversation about this.